Welcome back to another episode on the Mepedo Series. This episode is titled Time Out. And this time we're going to read from my novel, From an Orphan to a Queen, Esther. I will be reading a few paragraphs from the prologue, and I read. The garden lay warm and inviting. In a profusion of hues, flowers blossomed lushly with colors of the rainbow. Their scents hung heavily in the still air. In a small fenced-off pond, swans glided gracefully in bliss, while not far off. Her soft grey eyes misted over. Her gaze rested on the weeping willow, which framed and cast dark shadows over the bathing pond. She walked slowly on unsteady feet towards this favorite spot. Her beauty, which transcended time, was shielded with her thick white tresses like clouds cresting the mountain peaks. Her beauty was such that only the heavens could give, for the turbulent years had not drained her fountain of youth. As she walked towards the weeping willow, she stopped to pluck her favorite flower, a myrtle. Inhaling its distinct scent, she revelled in the pleasure of the moment and stared across the expanse of the pond, drinking in its rich beauty. As she walked on, she mused that there are certain things in life one can never get enough of. This was one such thing. This was her favorite spot. It was a place of worship, a place of communion with God. It was her place of quiet reflection. I hope you enjoyed it. In writing my novel From an Orphan to a Queen, Esther, the prelude begins with a scene of Esther in a garden. I placed the garden scene as it was symbolic of a place of stock-taking and peaceful reflection. So as I take a step back from this fictional enactment, I can't help but note the coincidence that the story of man begins in a garden as well. Have you ever wondered why the very first place God situated or positioned Adam was in a garden? Why did God not place man in a beachfront resort or a city with dazzling lights and bound in a whirlwind of action? I think the garden represents the environment for undiluted focus. I read somewhere that gardens are symbolic of the soul and its innocence, that it symbolizes consciousness because it is enclosed as opposed to a forest or a jungle. So gardens are used to create peace between people because they create or they represent inclusion and community. The lesson here is that to unravel and gain some insight into the complexities of life, we need to position ourselves in a simple and uncomplicated place, environment, or mindset. We need to take time to assess ourselves and do so within the right environment. We could ask ourselves, what is faith saying? And where does faith overrule? To what extent is one willing and able to drive destiny within the limits of time? What are the options available to choose from at any given time? And which should one opt for? So there are people who decide to go for a walk to clear their minds, to think and to reflect. Some surround themselves with good music. Some seek laughter with good people. The garden environment is essentially a cultivated place that is organic and warm. This includes cultivating relationships with people we allow into our personal spaces. When we surround ourselves with toxic personalities, environments take on what may be a wilderness or a desert. Create your garden atmosphere around you. It could be a real garden, or in symbolism, keep your environment and the aura around you in like mind. Ultimately, the garden or the environment enables a time out to reflect and be candid with ourselves, to take some steps away from the rat race and retreat into reevaluation, seeking out your identity from the head mentality, determining your true you despite the peer pressure, learning to be comfortable with your uniqueness and not being anxious to blend into what is normalcy. Being deliberate about the environment that surrounds our being is instrumental to the lives that we would live. Best always, and much love, Titi.